finding it. Just looking for the right page. It's gonna take a while. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this special online conversation that is being hosted by the Wize Move Society in conjunction with Move into the Future, which is a community for the over 50s. In Wize Move Society and Move into the Future, we believe that the over 50 generation has a significant role to play in the creation of the future because they bring so much knowledge. So I was just admitting somebody there because there's a lot of knowledge that they bring, experience and wisdom to the table that we can use to create solutions for the new challenges that we are facing. It is the intention of the Wize Move Society to offer an environment where we meet like-minded people. It's also the intention to shift the way of thinking of society about the 50+ generation and the significant role that they can play in creating the future that we would want to leave for the next generations. It is furthermore an intention of the Wize Move Society to change the mindset of the 50+ generation so that they can redefine their purpose, find their passion, and be aware of their potential and their ability to play an active role in creating their own future and the future of the generations to come. And lastly, it is the intention of the Wize Move Society to have a positive social impact on the economy by creating new opportunities, projects, jobs to empower this generation and amplify their voice. With these Tuesday live sessions, we aim to give you a glimpse of what is happening online on the Wize Move Society, to share with you a bit about both the challenges and opportunities that the 50+ generation is facing, as well as how the Wize Move community works together to create the solutions and play an active role in society. The 50+ generation is very clear that they are not on their way out, nor do we want them to be on their way out. They are able to reflect on what they have learned thus far in their lives and are still part of the future. For those of you that are joining us on Zoom, we'd love for you to contribute to the conversation. And if you want to contribute, please show yourself with your camera on. If not, if you're not ready to be seen today, share the question in the chat box and we will attend to it. If you are joining us on Facebook, also please share your feedback and questions with us in the comments section. And during the course of the session, we will endeavor to get to those comments and questions. My name is Tebello Mokhema, and I'm connecting with you from South Africa. And I will be co-hosting today's session with Dr. Tatiana Rowson, who is a coaching psychologist and researcher based in the UK. We are excited today, especially excited today, to be joined by our guest for the session, Karen Foy, who is a supervisor and program director at Henley Business School. She's also a certified coach and a mentor. Karen, welcome to the session today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. Before we dive into our topic today, I'd like to give you, Karen, an opportunity to say a few words, about who you are. And basically just share with us, who is Karen?
What a big question. Oh, and how long have we got? So I suppose that the title is I'm a coach and a teacher at Henley University, but it's not really everything about who I am. I'm very well past the 50 age, and I was a nurse in my past experience, but now I work in coaching, and I love coaching. I'm a mother of 4 very grown-up children and 8 grandchildren. So I'm not sure what else you need to know about me, but I'm sure it'll all team out as we talk later on.
What is the one interesting thing about Karen, other than the fact that she's a grandmother, and she's a teacher, and she's been in nursing?
So I suppose I was saying earlier, I've had such a long life. How much do I want to share? But I think probably the story that I don't tell that often is I left school at 14, just after my dad had died. So I left school at 14 without any qualifications, and for a long time that was kind of the thing that I carried on my shoulders, that was I clever, was I not, all of that stuff. So I went back. I was, people in the UK might be familiar with, but we had a miners' strike here in the 80s, and I was a miner's wife. And as part of that movement, I went back into learning. Or even it felt like I started learning at that point. I had 4 children before I was 28. So I kind of got into motherhood and lost myself, but actually went back and studied and went from no qualifications and now have a couple of degrees, and now I'm teaching, and I still pinch myself and say, is this really me, this little girl from the mining community who left school without any pieces of paper? So that's what people may not know about me, Tebello.
I'm glad I asked that question, because I think I just learned so much, and it is such powerful information that you've just shared with us there. And I'm hoping that anyone that's listening with us, I'm just having a slight challenge to get us on Facebook. If any of you are here with us, we will sort out the Facebook connection just now. But I wanted to say, for those that are listening and that will be listening in the future, and especially the young people, for me, what you've shared with us is the recognition that it's never too late. You know, you can do something in your life and then later go back and do something else. And there is just so much that one can still be able to do in this life for as long as we are given breath, to live. Let me also take the opportunity to welcome, some of our guests that are joining us on Zoom. Francis is joining us from South Africa. Mary Jane is joining us from Netherlands. And I think I also saw Deborah and Vicky, who are joining us from Canada, and I believe it's different parts in Canada, and also Miriam, who's joining us from the Netherlands. And all of these, for those of you that may not be aware, they are all members of the Wize Move Society. So as you can see, we are a global organization, and we have membership all across the world. Tatiana, if I could come to you, why did you think we needed to have a conversation with Karen today?
Well, I think that, and I have to admit to everyone that's listening, that I put Karen on the spot, because I called Karen and said, how about we go online and talk about self-belief? And we talk about how to boost our self-belief, knowing well enough that that's a very, very tricky question. Self-belief is a very big topic in our lives, personally, for each of us. And it has implications and is influenced by all sorts of things from our past, expectations that we hold within ourselves that will impact our self-belief. And the things we want about the future as well will impact our self-belief. So it's a very big topic. But we had a lot of conversations about that throughout our, now we're meeting again, but in the good old days, we used to meet all the time in person. That used to be some of our conversations over coffee. So yes, I got Karen here so we can share this conversation with all of you, and hopefully you all can join us and chip in on how to boost that self-belief. Karen, I'm going to pass the mic, sort of the virtual mic, to you, and I'll let you pick on my thoughts, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, right. I'm really interested when you said that you put me on the spot, because it may be interesting to people to know that the first thing I said to Tatiana was, what on earth makes you think I know anything about building self-belief? I've struggled all my life to believe or to accept self-belief. And it's interesting because even this morning I was saying to my husband, oh, what can I say about self-belief? You know me better than anybody, and you know it's the thing I struggle with. But it's this, and it, you know, it's a bit like when I first started studying and went back as if I'd ever been, went to university for the first time, and the first professor was saying about all research is me search. And I thought, that's it. I want to search for self-belief myself. So, you know, that's why it's so important to me. But when I was saying to my husband, what on earth can I say about it? And he said, you must have somewhere in you self-belief, or you would still be a miner's wife in a miner's village. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted so much more. So I think, and I loved what you were saying earlier, Tebello, about that, still seeking our purpose and our passion. And the one thing that's kept me going from the moment I started learning again, because I don't count my school time as actually learning, but when I went as an adult to learn, and I realized what I was doing, I was a truth seeker, I was a learner, and that was my passion to keep me going. And Tatiana knows, you know, I'm still at the moment on the brink of heading off for a PhD, you know, in my mid-60s. So I think it was that, there was something about that purpose and that need to get something beyond that helped me to stop, in some ways, this dark loyalty I had to the belief that I didn't have self-belief, if that makes sense to anybody. I don't know whether that speaks to you, Tatiana, about, you know, some of the conversations we have, but I've for so long told myself I haven't got self-belief that almost the evidence that says I have was clouding it out.
Wow. That's amazing, because I think that is an experience that most of us have, you know, and also a lot of times when others, you know, see a skill, a talent in you, and when they tell you about it, you say, no, what, who, me, never, you know. And so what was that one moment, Karen, that got to you in your life where you said, yes, I can and I will?
Oh, that's really interesting. I'm not sure there was one moment, but there was a growing dissatisfaction with where I was. And I think that it built in me, and I can't remember the quote now, but the thing about the bud, it's when it gets too uncomfortable to stay that you blossom. I can't remember. I'll make a hash of that quote, but it became too uncomfortable to stay where I was, to, in some ways, dumb myself down and keep myself small. And, you know, there was a lot of humility about keeping myself small. But as I've gone along, I've always had this thought, because I kept waiting for the time, because I hear a lot of women, mainly women, saying, oh, when I got to 40, and then I didn't care what people thought about me, and I started living my best life and getting my self-belief, or at 50 or at 60, and keep waiting for that moment for that to happen. I'm not sure there is a moment. And I don't know whether that's a facade that we think we've got to say that, or whether it's more a gradual acceptance of, actually, maybe, you know, I can accept my humanity. I don't have to be perfect, but I can accept my humanity and see that I've got a purpose.
I saw Mary Jane had the hand up. Come on.
Yeah, this is a topic really quite close to my heart as well, Karen. Nice to meet you. And years ago, around 10 years ago, I met a child psychologist here in The Hague. And we were talking, it was a women's network, and we were talking about self-efficacy, which is self-belief, same term. She stated, she said, I think that the glass ceiling that women impose upon themselves is this lack of belief in themselves, a lack of self-efficacy. And I asked the question at the time, is it nature or nurture? And she said, well, it's probably both, but I think more nurture than nature. It's the way we've been brought up, the way we talk to boys, encourage boys to do things differently, etc., and the way we talk to girls and the expectations that we put on girls and boys, that, you know, boys develop this higher level. Not, I'm speaking generally now. I mean, we know there's always exceptions, etc. So, you know, it's I think a really important factor if we look in our lives and you know, where do these limiting self-beliefs come from, you know? And I think it's tragic that we spend so much time with them. You know, I was just in a session this morning talking about reframing limiting beliefs, doing an experiment on that with a group. And, you know, one of the ones that comes up all the time is, of course, I'm just not good enough. But I mean, that's that limiting belief. So these are all things that hinder us in daring to take the step and say, yes, I believe in myself. Yes, I can do it. And it took me into my early 50s before I was ready to do that. And for me, it was a moment, a long moment, but a moment because it was a critical health issue. And either I had to step into it or I had to, you know, I would probably not be here today. So it was a time of real deep self-reflection, which I think we all need to go through. And the other thing I wanted to say, I think one of the things that really supported me in developing this belief in myself is learning that I have the control, the power of self-regulation, my emotions. I have that agility to say, am I going to let you be angry with me? Am I going to be hurt? And I'm not there yet. I don't know that I'll ever be 100%, but it's a steadily climbing curve or steep line, whatever we want to call it. But I just these were all thoughts that came into my head as you started to talk. I thought, what direction will this go in? And then immediately it wakens all these various reflections and thoughts. So I just did a brain dump on all of you.
Thank you, Mary Jane. That was a good one.
If I may, I just love what you said about those thoughts and those self-limiting beliefs. And I think we get into those habits, don't we, of thinking those self-limiting thoughts and beliefs. And thinking about, so Dr. Sarah Hill, who talks about, you know, the childhood story and addressing that childhood story. And she has this expression of being the bystander in your own life. And I love that now and try and hold on to that of being a bystander when I notice that self-belief's coming up again, that it's popping its head up again, just to be able to say, hello, there you are again, and try and put some humor into it now, because I can be very negative about myself, not about anybody else, but about myself. And then being able to just notice, oh, there it is again, that habit, that self-limiting belief. So what does it want to tell me this time? And you know, it may have been useful at some time, but it's no longer any use. So that's the thought that came up, Mary Jane.
Thank you both, Mary Jane and Karen. I love this phrase, being a bystander in your own life. And also we keep hearing lately, the message keeps coming back to say, remember, you are the producer, you are the director, and you're the actor in your life, right? And you have the responsibility to change the script if the script doesn't work for you, and, you know, direct it in a different way. Francis, you wrote a wonderful comment here. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, by Epictetus. I hope I've said it right. Would you like to add something to that, Francis? You are muted.
Oh. Well, you know, as you all know, I spent 25 years interviewing people, and the frustration that I had with women, because if they didn't have 90% of what was required, they didn't want to go forward. Guys would have 10% and they'd spend an hour convincing me that they're going to kill it. And there are these women who've got 90, 80% of what was required, and they would say, no, 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 no. And I I talk a lot. Nothing I said changed many of them. And I used to have this saying in my office that it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it. It's not what you study, it's what you believe about your studies. It's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know. And yes, girls know all this, they become experts on it, but they don't act on it. They're always suffering from imposter syndromes. And the worst thing is, my clients wanted women more than guys. Why? Because women have such low self-esteem compared to the men that they work 10 times harder and ask for 10% less. So it's a perpetuating. I used to say to the girls, how often do you say no? They don't want to say no. I sort of myself. I don't say no because I want people to like me. When I learned to say no, I realized now I'm getting confident. But I mean, I'm 71. How long does it take? You know, I should be like this in 31, not 71. So what Mary Jane said about nurture, it's what my dad used to tell me, you can't go to university. You've got a big mouth. You're going to get a bigger one. Who's going to marry you?
Wow.
My brothers must go to university so they can get a big mouth. You know, they didn't go to university. They went and had clubs. So it's that kind of the way I'm glad to see that it's changing. I'm glad to see that the young girls are really changing and the young boys. So I think it is changing. And belief, I think everyone's suffering from it today.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what I believe.
That's amazing, Frances. And I love the part that it's changing. And I think what I love more is how the generation that's got experience, I'm working the words in my head, the generation that's got experience are also sharing with us at a younger age, in terms of the different self-beliefs that we need to be having. Debs, your comments and thoughts on this topic about, self-belief?
Yeah, well, I was, I'm listening to all this magnificent knowledge, and when I would write a lot, journal, because I would get into these places of such self-doubt that it was consuming, and so I would write and I would write and I would journal, and then I would keep my journals. And one day I went back and looked at these journals, like, God, Jesus, so poor. Bleep. I look back and I thought, this is the same theme. It's the same theme. It's about self-doubt, about I'm not good enough. I have to be perfect. And mine didn't come from anyone telling me anything. It came from my own decision that I made as a very young child, that I needed to be perfect in order to be loved, in order for people to think that I was worthy. And that has been a journey my whole life, which took me on like a dual journey of more like a spiritual journey of who am I and how can I address this? And I'm still doing it many decades later, because I think that it's so hardwired that it isn't until now that I'm able to feel a more sense of lightness and feel that I can actually be who I really am. And I've been creating businesses and getting success, but somehow, as we've been discussing, it's almost like, well, I don't believe it. It's not really there, because it's got to be more. But having the ability through my yoga and breathing and meditation, it's for me, it's a tool that I can relate to, that I can go to on a daily basis, that's helping me. In a way, it's like having a hard knot of belief, and over the years dusting off that dirt that comes off layer by layer by layer by layer to get to that sense of self where I can check in on a regular basis when I'm feeling that, because I feel it today. It's an old albatross that I've been dragging around forever, that I can go into that place of silence and go, that is so false. And I feel it and I know it. So it's the sense of knowing that then opens up my whole being and opens up my heart so that I can go forth with a sense of being grounded. And I think for me, that's worked for me.
That's so powerful. You know, what you're saying, Deborah, is powerful. And it reminds me, I think it was in one of the sessions previously, Tatiana, where somebody reminded us that we are spirits that are going through different experiences, right? And some of these experiences, something is going to tell us about them. We're going to experience them, but somewhere along the line, we're also going to turn around and say, hold on, there's a different, life experience that I want to go through as a spirit that's going through this life. And I want to come back to Tatiana and Karen from an education perspective and be able to say, is there anything that maybe we see happening in our education that could be contributing to this lack of self-belief, number one? And number two, are we also starting to see a change? Where education or information in the education system is starting to help the young people, to not grow up with these beliefs that some of us, we were taught when we were young, and now we are going through a whole peeling process in our later parts of our lives. Tatiana, over to you, and then we'll go to Karen.
Thank you, Tebello. I think that's a very interesting question. But as you're formulating, I'm thinking here, is there something changing? Are we in education doing, and what level of education are we doing something? And there's been a quiet movement that's growing very slowly, which is a compassion-based or a compassionate education, a compassionate university, that being a very positive movement towards helping people to increase the self-belief. I think the idea of accepting who we are is a fact of life. None of us are perfect. None of us are they're 100% on that score sheet, Francis. And once we accept that, we're actually in a good place to make the most of what we have. And there's been a talk about how education has to incorporate this much more into how we do things. So we raise what's the role of education is to educate people, is to help people to grow, to take charge of their own learning as they move forward more independently, is to build that basis that actually drives society in a way. So I think that the whole movement of the compassionate university or the compassion-based education is growing, but I think that is still pretty much informal and sort of more prominent in certain circles than others. I think that's
out of the bag.
Pardon?
The cat is out of the bag, where before it was that.
I think that's a very good frame.
Always knows best.
Thank you, Deborah. Karen.
Well, as you were asking the question, Tebello, I was thinking, because I don't teach sort of undergraduates or anybody younger, I teach adult learners. It's kind of the frame's already set by the time people come and talk to start to educate, just like it was for me. And I think it's a harder journey then. And I suppose just broadening the question out, because I can't answer that question. So broaden it out is just thinking about, I can only think about the young people I'm in contact with. So my own daughters, my nieces, people who I see growing up. The worry is that we're still in this perfection thing, everything saying that we need to be perfect, as Deborah was saying, before we can do anything. So we're all, to use Brene Brown's term, we're all hustling for worthiness as people, as human beings, not just women. So we're all trying to fulfill these roles and be that role. And I know for me, it was very much about trying to be whatever I was going to be. So when I was a student, trying to be the perfect student, or be the perfect nurse, or whatever I was trying to be, and try and fill those roles. And I really believe the thing that holds, well, it certainly held me back, was one of my honor codes, if you like, is authenticity. I want to be authentic and authentically me. But most of the time, I was then putting on an outfit that said, oh, I'm this person now, or I'm that person now. I think the beauty that I've come to at this stage, although it's a work in progress, is getting rid of those cloaks and just saying, well, actually, this is me in whatever role I'm doing. I think, I don't know if anybody remembers the film Beetlejuice, where, some monstrous sort of person, but there's a point, it's a children's film, but he kind of opens his cloak and there's all this grottiness inside. And I feel like for many years I was doing that, trying to pretend I was somebody different with these roles. But then, and then if you open it out, you see all the grot, and I was trying to keep the cloak. But now it's actually opening that cloak. So I know that's gone away from the question you posed, but I think we're all on this journey to try and bring the authentic us forward, instead of whatever role society, the job, education tells us we ought to be. I don't know if that resonates with anybody.
Yes, thank you, Karen. Can I pick on that as well, Karen? Because I think the flip side, or the other side of that, which I think is really interesting, is we often don't see other people's self-doubt.
Yeah.
We think that everyone got it. It's like everyone in the room seems to know what they're doing, and it's only me.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that when we think as a bystander, we actually, it's a joke, right? But when we are in the moment, it's mortifying. We feel that we are the only ones that are not fitting in.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Pardon?
I was going to say it's because we compare our insides with other people's outsides.
Exactly.
That's the problem. But I heard Meryl Streep give the most amazing talk about why there are no female roles. The Devil Wears Prada is the only female role that men could relate to. And she said the reason is that female characters, female heroines, are not relatable to men, but women can relate to male heroes. So that's the whole nurture thing. We have to fit in with the male psyche, but males do not want to fit in with the female psyche. They see it as dumbing down. So I think well, I don't know, maybe Tatiana, you would know. I think that's the beginning of everything. It's how that kind of perception.
There's certain, I think we clearly know, and we've all seen it in our own different environments, how our nature, has influenced us, and it continues to influence us. But I'd like to bring somebody who's on the call, Miriam, who also is part of, or facilitates, conversations, with various groups of people, and get input from Miriam in terms of, the topic of self-belief in some of your sessions, if it's come up, and how, has it come up, and how has it been addressed? Over to you, my dear.
I just go back to one story, and then I'll tell about what I experienced. Now, what Karen just told me, there came this specific time in my life that I was doing photography. I studied photography at the Academy of Arts, And I had to, in a traineeship, I had to look at the perfect peanuts for the picture. So I was sitting for 2 hours with maybe 20 boxes of peanuts looking for the perfect peanut, because the perfect peanut should be on the picture. That is something that really clicked. Like, there's nothing we're looking at, almost nothing that is not, how do you say it? It's not being, even if you look at a slice of a sandwich or a bread, it looks perfect, but you'll never find that one in the supermarket. So each day, maybe every minute, we are exposed to non-perfect, perfect, non-perfect things. So that's that came up when Karen was telling the story. So I want to share that one. So with the self-belief in the Scotch floating, where I've got the groups, it's not specific that it's a subject that came up, but the being authentic and feeling authentic is something that every times come up. So if you look at that, because what it does to people is that they immediately go into the state of how they're supposed to be as a human being, because we unlearn that. And from there, I think it's not, self-belief is not a topic that it's not specific that we spoke about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think the analogy about spending time looking for the perfect peanuts, right?
Yeah.
Spend time looking at other people's outsides, trying to fix our insides when we should be focusing on our insides. And that's such a beautiful analogy, you know. And also remember, even if you were to find that peanut, somebody's only going to experience it once, because the next time they see it is always going to be in the photograph, right? They're never going to see it in real life. So Karen, coming back to you, so how, I mean, with all of us having learned, you know, all these messages, and we've been nurtured in different ways, and we are all struggling, you know, to work through it. I remember the other day we were having a session with Deborah, and all of it, you know, most of us were thinking about finding the perfect yoga pose. And Deborah was reminding us that yoga is not about finding the perfect pose, but it's about accepting the space that I'm in right now and working with that space. So after all these years and all these experiences, how can we boost self-belief, especially in people that have really got a lot that they are still carrying, but they are looking to say, for the next 10 to 20 years of my life, I want to live a different life. I want to have a different perspective in terms of my self-belief. How then do we go about helping them to boost it within themselves?
It's a really big question, and I think, you know, there are so many things out there that, you know, talk about 5 or 12 or however many ways to boost your self-belief, and I'm not sure that there is a magic bullet that does that. I'm not sure that there is one way, but I think and this is a personal my experience, it's that idea of how we can, one, be a bystander in our life and accept that we are perfect, imperfectly perfect. We are perfect humans, and that brings with it the humanity brings imperfection. But for me, I always try and keep hold of that idea. Viktor Frankl says that acceptance is the point of transformation, and perhaps being able to accept our own uniqueness. And instead of trying to be a second-rate somebody else, like we say, we always think somebody else has got the you know, they've got it, they know it, they've got the confidence. My the next sister to me, she always says to me, "You even walk bossy. You're so confident." And I say, not at all. But, you know, instead of trying to be a second-rate somebody else, just to accept who we are and be a first-rate us. And I go back to what your introduction at the start about finding our own purpose in life. And not the one that somebody tells us is our role to be. I said, you know, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a this, I'm a that. And with that comes a lot of different expectations, as Tatiana said, and feelings of I should be this. So as a granny in my 60s, I should be, you know, happy to have children all of the time around me, perhaps sit with my knitting. I do like knitting, but that's another story. But there's an image that comes with that, instead of I'm still working, I still intend to work until probably the day before my funeral. I intend to be there. I've still got that purpose in life. So I think for all of us, if we can find our own reason to be, what makes life worth living for us, and to perhaps stop hiding our light and find a way to shine rather than hide the light and get rid of the messages that tell us whatever it tells us about. You know, was it Marianne Williamson that said our biggest fear is the fear of our own light? And we have had that fear. And I love what Frances was saying about how men, you know, with perhaps 10% of the talent and the skill will shout, and a woman with 90% will say, no, that's not for me. But there's something about being able to just acknowledge, yeah, I've got things I need to learn, but I'm okay. And it's back to that, am I good enough? Well, who knows what's good enough? I've never found out what's a good enough parent. Never found out what's a good enough granny or a good enough teacher. I can only bring my uniqueness. So I'm probably not the best person to talk about the 5 steps to get to self-belief. But I think there is something very fundamental, and part of in my coaching practice, I talk to people about thinking about the Ram Dass quote that we're all just walking each other home. I just think about how can I help you to walk back and remember who you are, rather than trying to create a false self, because the person you are is absolutely beautiful. And it's accepting it, and it is a work in progress. Like Deborah, I don't think I've got to that place, but I know I'm a lot further around than I used to be. Yes, it's the same thing that comes back over and over again when I feel tired or I feel whatever, you know, and I'm a bit low. I think, oh, there it is again. But it's a bit like walking around a mountain and just going higher and higher every time. I see it from a different place. And it's not quite as, it doesn't throw me quite as far into the valley when I see it now. I just know it for what it is, and know a bad day is just a bad day, or a bad hour, or a bad minute. I don't know. Tatiana's probably got lots more evidence base that she could put into that.
Oh, now you put me on the spot, Karen. There you are. But I agree with you, Karen. I think it's very difficult to have a 5-step plan that works for everyone. This is such an individual journey. And sometimes these moments of transitions, and I'm saying that because we are in a community over 50s, where a lot of people thinking of retiring or taking on a second career. And these moments of transitions are a real opportunity to explore what is this life that I'm covering here, because I was for so many years trying to comply and to be the corporate man or the corporate woman or whatever my community wanted me to do. So moments of transitions are painful and are challenging, but they do offer opportunities for us to peel a bit of that coat and show who we are. And I think that if there's one step that can get us closer to increase our self-belief, is actually get closer to who we are. And I think that's important to say. So self-belief is not stable, it's a dynamic. Today you are here, tomorrow you are there, but it's a dynamic.
Thank you. Mary Jane? Wow.
Yeah. A couple of thoughts that come up in addition to what you just shared, Tatiana. And one is, from the work that Kristen Neff has done in self-compassion. And it was a real eye-opener for me when I read her book, or that was her first book at that time. I don't know if she's written anything since. But one of the things, was the things we say to ourselves are things, and Karen, you mentioned it, you'd never say it to someone else. You would certainly never say it to your best friend. But when you hear that inner voice, when you hear that inner critic shouting sometimes in your ear that you're not good enough, or whatever it is that it's sharing with you, instead of trying to push it away, is to embrace it. And it sounded crazy at the time, but I thought, I'm going to try it. So whenever I would hear that voice in my head criticizing myself for not having done this or that, or not having done it well enough, I would just say, stop, like really to get myself out of that flow of thinking, and then to actually embrace this as part of me, my subconscious that wants to protect me. If I read and understood what she shared, that was the message, that your subconscious is trying to protect you. It wants you to be safe. It doesn't want you to fail. And therefore, by acknowledging and embracing and saying, I know you're doing this for my own good. You're saying this to help me, but this isn't supporting me. So I need to find a better way, something better for myself. And this is where, of course, the reframing of thoughts comes in, to better support, to better service us. So just questioning, is this thought serving me? Is this thought supporting me? I find goes a long way to stopping that vicious treadmill that we get on, or the negative spiral of thinking that we can get swallowed up in so easily. So that was just something. And then again, I'll go back to, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but if we learn, and we can learn, how to self-regulate our emotions, this goes a long way to maintaining our personal power in situations. I remember 20 years ago, it would have been a little bit more than 20 years ago, a client overheard me having an argument with someone in the place where I was working. And he pulled me aside and he said, you realize that by allowing someone else to make you angry, you're giving your power away to that person. And it was a real aha moment for me. I've had a few of them in my 6+ decades, but in those words, it was really from, well, how can I do that? He makes me so angry. And then it comes down to what you were mentioning earlier, Karen, and Francis too. There is a choice. And in that choice is our freedom. And that was also, I think, a quote that's often given to, I paraphrased it, but given to Viktor Frankl. So we have choices, and learning that and accepting that and taking responsibility for our own emotions. I don't know, guys, I think that goes a long, long way to developing the self-confidence we need to say, yes, I will take that job, even though I don't know that I've got all the capabilities that it needs. I can learn it. That I can attitude, which belongs to that self-belief, self-efficacy. I don't know. So some more thoughts that come through in my mind as we're talking.
Mary Jane, you've made me think of a couple of things. If I may just quickly jump in, is that okay?
Please.
Because you reminded me of, like you say, that our brain, our inner talk, what it's saying to us and about keeping us safe. And it's really our left brain is keeping us safe like this. And I think for me, it was getting to remember that the left brain is a liar. It's just trying to keep me safe, but it's a liar. And I don't have to believe everything that it says. And if we did take anything practical away from today to do in relation to the left brain being a liar, there's an idea of creating a good news journal, so that every time someone tells us something or says something or even smiles at us, or does some, you know, oh, you did that so well, or oh, I really like that you do this. If we just write that down and remind ourselves for the times when we are believing our left brain that tells us we're not good enough, to just be able to look back. And sometimes it's really hard to write that stuff down because we've been told to be whatever it is, to have humility. But actually, just to write those things down, I think it's really important to have that good news journal.
Yeah, a friend of mine calls it her brag book.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, as usual, these conversations, you get to a point where you're like, oh my God, time is about to end. And there's still so much, you know, that we want to learn and hear from each other. Deborah, you've raised your hand.
Well, Karen and Mary Jane are bringing up two really good topics. And Mary Jane, you'll really relate to this. It's about resilience. And how do you have the resilience to not believe that thought? Is there's something called body feeling, and the body is a place where it's not the mind, it separates the mind, right? And so when you recognize, when you have the ability, the resiliency to recognize that you actually are angry, or you're sad, or you're disappointed or something, and there is an actual corresponding feeling in the body. And so by going into that feeling and actually feeling the texture of what that feeling is and focusing with that feeling, as painful as it can be in that moment, you will notice by just feeling it, it will disappear in a poof. And what is left is a sense of calm and being. It's very, very powerful. And the more we do that, the more we empower ourselves, we create that resilience. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Francis?
Well, I'm listening. I love this left brain idea, because one way to stop the left brain is to get the right brain working. And what I do in my workshops is I get people to write, because the minute you pick up a pen, you can't feel, you have to think, because you can't feel and think at the same time. So no matter what you're feeling, the minute you pick up a pen, your thoughts start coming into order. And one of the things we always write is standards. You know, we always have this idea that we're not good enough, but you're not good enough to what standard? So you need to know fit. So I used to call the workshop Fit for Purpose. What's the purpose? You know, you're going to bake a cake. How do you know that cake is a good cake? What's the standard? You're going to do an Excel spreadsheet. What's the standard? And that's fit for purpose. That's what I was saying. Once you have a purpose and you have a standard, it's easier to believe that you've done it well.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. I've noted some comments as well on Facebook. Thank you for those of you that have joined us on Facebook. This is obviously, as you can tell, an amazing conversation, and a conversation also that's helping us to really just reframe and rewire certain things, you know, that we have had in the space of our upbringing. Thank you, you know, for some of the comments that we have seen about making a choice on a daily basis, you know, deciding what is it that you want, how you want to live your life and what choices you're making. Nothing is as good as staying true and close and embracing yourself. And also the idea of having a good news journal. Ladies, we are close. We're going to be close to completing our session for today. I can't believe it. I wish we could sit here for another half an hour to an hour to converse. Tatiana, your final comments for us today?
Oh, my comments, yes, Tebello. I think we could sit here and talk for hours, and I think that that's quite a lot of different facets. But I like the Mary Jane, you touch on Kirsten Neff, and the things you say to ourselves, and stopping and become a bit more aware of what we say to ourselves, and become a bit more active. And stopping these thoughts goes a long way of helping us to increase our self-belief. So I would say I'm really grateful for Karen as well to have joined us today. So thank you, Karen. And these are my final words. I wonder if Karen wants to say one or two words as well.
Thanks, Tatiana. It's just been an absolute pleasure to talk with you all. And I suppose my thinking at this stage now, and it's helped by what everybody else has been saying, is if we reframe and see that we are perfect for the life we were brought into on this planet to learn something. We're perfect for that, and we're all different. That if we change it to just learning something, I want to take something away and learn from it, rather than I want to get better, I want to believe this, I want to do that, but just, we're open to learning in our humanity. I think that's what I'm taking away anyway. Just going to be a bystander and notice when I put barriers in and get in my own way.
Yeah. Mary Jane, any final words?
Nope, not from me. I think I think I've said enough, but no, this is perfect. Thank you all. Thanks, Karen. Really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Miriam, any final words?
No final words. Thank you for all for what you shared, and that is I need to digest time.
I think this might be a first, Tatiana, that we don't have final words, is it? So, however,
no. I think the topic was a topic that speaks to all of us, and if we don't relate, we're not being honest and truthful. So I think that's. I agree, Miriam. Thank you. It's a lot to think about, and I think even myself, listening to some of the things that are being said, I thought, I could think about it myself. I could apply that myself this week. So yes, I think that's where we are with that. Tebello, over to you, and thank you so much for coordinating and hosting the session today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Francis, any final word from you?
The thing I was thinking while everybody was talking is self-belief has to do with values. The stronger the values we have, the stronger our beliefs are. I think the stronger our self-belief will become. Just something I was thinking while everyone was talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Tatiana said, we could talk for hours.
Yeah, thank you. Well, for those of you that have joined us on Zoom today and on Facebook, thank you so much for taking the time. And we hope also that you got a lot of nuggets of wisdom today. I know I certainly, got a lot. And for those people that are in their midlife and they are rethinking and wondering where to go, what's going to be happening, I think there are various messages for me that came through today. Number one is that don't become a bystander in your own life. If there's a thought that you have, if there's something you've always wanted to do, and now you're sitting and saying, I have retired, I don't know what to do, this is the time to do it. Get on it and do it, because that way you become the actor, the producer, and the director of your life. Also, that accepting that we are perfectly imperfect souls. That I love this, that we are all walking ourselves home. And as we walk ourselves home, we're going to interact and meet with other souls that we will connect with, others we will learn from, and others will just appreciate that they were on the journey with us. And whoever you are, wherever you are, remember, you are a masterpiece. Therefore, you need to bring that uniqueness. For as long as you wake up and you are breathing in the morning, on that day, go out there and be a unique person and make a change in the world, if not for yourself, for the people that are around you, for the future generations. And these are the messages that we want to continue to share with you on the Wize Move Society. If you have not joined us as a member, please go onto our website, www.moveintothefuture.com, and join us there, become a member, because this is where you'll be able to find all of this information. We have started to run training sessions on a weekly basis, but more importantly that I'm excited to share with you today is that on Sunday the 17th and Sunday the 24th of October, we are going to be having our happy hour sessions with all our members. So if you want to come and be part of the happy hour, do come and join the Wize Move Society, where you'll be able to find all the details about those sessions there. I want to thank everybody, Mary Jane, Miriam, Francis, Tatiana, and most importantly, Karen, for the knowledge and the wisdom that you have shared with us today. And we will definitely all be taking and thinking deep about what we heard and going out and applying it. If you are joining us for the first time, we will be back again on Tuesday next week at 1700 hours CET time, where we'll be having another speaker that will be engaging with us on a different topic. And to everyone, wherever you are, enjoy the rest of your morning, the rest of your afternoon, and the rest of your evening as the day continues. Thank you, everybody, and have a blessed day forward. Namaste. Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Beautiful.
Thank you so much for the pleasure. Bye.
Hey, bye.
Bye-bye.